The Rosie and Bill Show wish to thank our partners and Positivity primary sponsors.
The Roselli Agency, based in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Brian and his team of insurance professionals have been serving the needs of Chester County for more than 2 decades.
The Mallon Agency, located in Springfield, PA, where they take pride in tailoring the right insurance policy for the right client and exceeding expectations every time.
It's hard being a retired ex-rock star. People think you got a lot more money than you really do, especially women.
Welcome everyone to the Rosie and Bill Show. Our guest this week is one of the greatest drummers to ever sit behind a kit. He's a rock and roll Hall of Famer, a founding member of the Hall of Fame rock and roll band Chicago, and after decades of being on the throne, he hasn't missed a beat. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show the man who delivered the most heartfelt and compelling speech ever given at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, Danny Seraphine. Danny, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you both. Thanks for having me. That was quite an introduction. Am I blushing?
You are, actually.
Yeah, I'm blushing.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Danny, when did you first discover the drum kit? What drew you to it?
Well, my uncle, I was very, very young. And I saw my uncle. My uncle was a drummer, semi-professional, and he was actually quite good. I saw him play at a wedding, and I said to my mom, "That's what I want to be, Mom. I want to be a drummer." And then I never let go of that. Then I started banging on pots and pans, and then they got me some drum lessons. I started at 9, so it was just I knew what my calling was, because I was crazy, high energy, uncontrollable, and the drums were the perfect outlet for me.
I'm sure.
But anyways, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I'm sure your
walk.
teachers at school were happy that you got that energy out at home.
Well, not really, because I was beating on the desk, all the time, even unconsciously, and then they'd get, "Daniel Seraphine, what are you doing?" I don't know. I didn't do too well in school, but that's okay. That's another story.
Yeah. That's all right. There's other options, and you clearly found the one that was best for you. But Danny,
sure
when you were younger, you said you started playing around 9. Did you have any other interests when you were younger besides the drums?
Just trouble. Yeah, just trouble. I mean, no, like I said, I was so high energy that fortunately the drums found me. I found the drums. And eventually learned to make my living that way, otherwise, who knows? I was in street gangs and gang fights, and, I quit school at 15. So, now my other interests were drums.
Well, it's interesting that you say that about the gangs, because sometimes music saves lives. And it sounds to me like, thank God that you had that calling, because it gave you an outlet and an area to focus. Now, you practice in your basement, right?
Yeah.
Were you the guy that had all all the guys in the band over? Was it always at your house, the band practices?
Oh, no. I practiced by myself. Walter Parazater, we used to practice at his house. But no, we never practiced at my house. It was always at someone else's. But yeah.
Because I know, like, sometimes when growing up, my brother had a band, and they would be down in our basement. My dad would be like, "Turn it down, you're too loud,"
Yeah, well, rock and roll is meant is meant to be loud. There's
Right.
nothing you can do about it. Although there are extremes that even I, you know, my years, I have terrible tinnitus to prove for the loudness, as a result. So yeah, it's just the nature of the music, and it has to be. I mean, there's loud, and then there's ear damage, ear
Right.
splitting, window breaking, and thank God the band I'm in, we're loud, but we don't get to that level. And Chicago didn't either. I mean, we were loud. There's no doubt, and it has to be loud. It's just that's the way it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Chicago, so let's go there now. How did Chicago come about? And when you were working together, did you foresee this vision to the degree of success that you had?
Well, it was an evolutionary process. I met Walter Parazater and Terry Kath, right when I got pulled out of the street gang thing. That's where I really got. There was a band called Jimmy Ford and the Executives. It was the number one band in the city. It was a horn band. They were Dick Clark's road band. They played for all his tours. They played backup for all of his tours, and they were a legend around the city. And they used to drive every so often. You'd see this candy apple red old Cadillac hearse with the name on the side. So that was like, wow, these guys were a big deal. So I got a call. I literally my life. I'd quit school. I mean, things had really gone to shit for me. They had really, and my mom even, I remember my mom saying, maybe you should think of joining the Marines. And I thought, oh God, me and the Marines. I used to get in fights with the Christian brothers rules. I'm not a rules guy. To this day, I'm a terrible rules guy. I don't like rules. I break them. I just do. I'm a rule breaker. So I got the call one day, and literally, I was kind of in despair. I got to say that I was in despair because I knew I was going nowhere, and I knew what my options were really limited, and they weren't good. Okay, I knew that. I was smart enough to know that at that age, which was kind of a step ahead. So I literally, in my head, I thought, this isn't working. The music thing isn't working. I can't find any guys that are on my level or that really want it as badly as I do, because they were all like, fall asleep at rehearsal. It was just, So I literally thought to myself, I guess this isn't going to work for me. And 2 minutes later, the phone rang. And this is the honest to God truth. I swear to God, the phone rang, and it was a neighborhood guy who'd seen me play and was following me. Always like was that, hey, you're good, kid, you're good. And he called me. He said, hey, the Jimmy Ford and the Executives, their drummer is going to quit, going to lead the band. Do you want to come and audition? I told him about you, because I was there. I was really young, not even 16. And so I said, sure, So I went, I did the audition. I played James Brown, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. I never played it. I only heard it on the radio. I aced it. And, I played another song, which I only heard on the radio. I didn't, and they said, yeah, we want you, so the change, my life just transformed right there. I mean, it was like I got pulled off the streets and I became a professional musician. And I mean, there was a process because I remember the first time I met Terry and Walt, Terry introduced himself and immediately burped in my face, very nice to meet, and Walt was sitting in the front seat. And I think because Walt was sitting in the front seat smoking a cigarette with his feet. He had this pompadour with hair, kind of long hair, and it was like I was a stranger in a strange land, because I was what they call a corner guy. I was the guy in the gangs, the Italian, leather jackets, fedora, just miniature gangster, And so I'm looking at these guys going, holy shit, what am I doing? And these guys were like beatniks in some ways, that was that. Yeah, they were talking outside groovy. I'm going, But little by little, I worked my way in, and then Walt, Terry, and I became like, like family, and the rest of the band. And that band, what happened was that band merged with another horn band called the Mob, and Terry, Walt, and I got fired. Right? That's what we all were like, what? So yeah, it wasn't like it was like, they're anyways. So they formed a super group with another band, but Terry, Walt, and I were odd man out. So we played in a cover band for about a year and a half called the Missing Links, which was, it was just a cover band. And we made more money with the Missing Links than we did with Jimmy Ford for some reason. I don't know. And then that band had kind of reached its, like, it kind of had run its course, because it was just a cover band, a good one, but not great, because the guitar player, to be honest with you, guitar player was a weak link. So, and Terry was playing bass, right? Terry played bass in that band. Terry played bass in the Executives, and in the Missing Links. And so that band was kind of like, we had one. I remember we had a club gig at the place called the Money Tree. It was a mob club. It was dangerous. It was depressing. And I remember we're gonna, the band was basically, we was gonna break up, and Walt was being groomed for the second chair of the Chicago Symphony, and Terry had gotten an offer to go to California with, because the flower power hippie thing was just happening, right? He had opportunity to go with one of the top local bands, got signed by a producer by the name of James William Guercio to go to California. And so I'm sitting here thinking, God, I'm going to lose my musical soul, my brothers, right? And I mean, what am I going to do? So I talked to Walt, and I said, Walt, man, I don't want to, I don't want to lose what we have. It's great, man. Let's put a band together of all the best players in the city, a horn band. Got to be a horn band, because we both missed playing with the Executives. And he said, let me think about it. And he talked to his wife. He had just got married. His wife said, yeah, whatever you want to do. And he got back to me and said, yeah, I'm in. I don't want to. I don't want it to end. I want us to keep going. So Terry, so Walt and I kind of ganged up on Terry, and we said, hey, Terry, because we knew Terry, how great a guitar player he was. He was a closet guitar player in a sense, because the last two bands we played bass. So we said, Terry, why don't you play guitar with our band? We don't want you to, we're going to miss you, man. And he said, it literally, and this was a good opportunity for Terry, right? To go to the West Coast, that was a big deal. And he was itching to get into the hippie, flower power, the movement, so to speak. So he said, yeah, I don't want to, I'll do it. I'm in. I don't want to leave you guys either. So that was the beginning of what evolved in Chicago. So we found Robert Lamb. His name was Bobby Charles at the time. Yeah, on the south side of Chicago. Lee Locknane, the trumpet player, was friends with. He had sat in with the Missing Links, and he played with local bands. He was a trumpet player. Walter was going to DePaul University, right? And he knew. I mean, he was in a jazz band with a guy named James Pankow. And this guy, he said, this guy's a really great trombone player, and I think he's a really good arranger. So we got him in, did the first audition, and yeah, so we had, initially it was without Peter, okay? Robert was playing B3 organ with organ pedals as the bass, right? Because that was the thing then. That was kind of a thing. It was a cool thing, but so we started out as, we were, the best cover band you could ever imagine, right? And we were doing well in clubs and everything, and our name was The Big Thing, if you can imagine that. We had an Italian manager, and he said, we said, what's our name? And he, what should we name the band? He said, how about Top Banana or Big Thing? And we said, we don't like either. He said, okay, you're The Big Thing. And we didn't. He's a big Italian guy. You didn't argue with him. So. I can't, we don't have enough time to go through the whole thing, but anyways, let me accelerate a little bit. So that we did pretty well. I mean, we were playing the covers, Four Seasons, Little Anthony and the Imperials, the Rascals, Sam and Dave, all the R&B stuff. And we were great. You had that full horn, you got a great horn section, Terry, but we were missing that high voice, right? And so we did it. Peter Cetera was in like the #1 band in the city. I mean, there were 3 other singers. It was called The Exceptions, and there were 3 other singers that sang at his level, but different ranges, right? And they were amazing. You could walk into a nightclub and they'd be doing Good Vibrations, right? And
Right.
you'd be thinking, man, I'm hearing the jukebox. And then you'd look up and it was them. That's how good they were. So we did a gig with them where we opened up for them. They were the headliners. And we kind of blew them off the stage, really. But we heard that they were feuding, within the band, and that Peter was going to quit or be fired or whatever. And so I said to Walt, we got to get him in the band, man. We need a bass player anyways, that high voice. I was just thinking high, Peter Cetera would be the tenor, and then Robert Lamb would be the middle, and then Terry would be the low, baritone, so to speak. And, it took a little while for Peter, because he was getting offers from every city, every band in the city. Everybody wanted Peter because he was, he was a great singer then, as he is, and a bass player, really, really fine bass player. So he finally relinquished. I really nagged the heck out of him. I mean, I pestered until
You're
I think
tenacious.
he gave in just to get me to shut up. So so once we did that, I knew we were special, and the simultaneously, the guy who signed Terry wanted to sign Terry to the band that going to the West Coast, pulled him aside and said, "Why did you pass up on this great offer?" And Terry said, "Well, come and hear our band, and you'll know why." So Jimmy Guercio came and heard the band, and he just said, "You're the best band I've ever heard in my life." And he signed us to a production deal contract, and eventually he was going to bring us out to the West Coast, which he did, and we would, he wanted, we would rehearse and conceive our first album. So in the summer of '68, we were getting. What happened was, let me just say about the transition we made, because at that point, once he signed us, he said, "Now you guys got to start doing. Why don't you do original arrangements of cover songs?" And we did. We started, and they were amazing. They were amazing. We should have recorded it. I know, tell you that. And we started. What happened was we were playing these traditional clubs who expected us to play jukebox, and we play these avant-garde arrangements of cover songs, and we started getting fired. We got fired here, boom, we got fired there, and at that time, Walt was married, Peter was married, I had just been married and had a baby. My wife had a baby, and so we couldn't have. We were starving, So we reached out to Jim Guercio in LA and said, "Hey, if you have any plans of bringing us out, now's the time to do it because we're starved, we're dying here." So, anyways, a couple of the guys who were single flew out, and then the rest of us, caravaned with trailers and we went to Hollywood. We settled. We were in a 7 of us lived in a 2-bedroom house for 6 months. And we wrote and conceived and rehearsed the CTA album, and that's where that was the strength, and it was very galvanizing, to be living with one another. You fighting all the time, whatever. But there's a certain, a real band like that, a brotherhood, which is what it was. It turned into a brotherhood. Yeah, there was a lot of fighting. A lot of, that's just, you're talking about 7 guys living in a 2-bedroom house, 6. Robert shacked up with a hot lady, and he was smart. We were also envious.
Yeah, but you had your wife and the baby.
No, no, they were in
they
Chicago.
Stayed. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't come out for like, I would say they didn't come out for 6 months, but might have been a little bit less, but it was months and months. It was like a few months.
Well, it really would have been crowded if wives and babies came out to that two-bedroom place, right?
Oh yeah, that wouldn't have worked. So what happened was this, Gershio, he paid the rent for the house, and then we rented these small apartments right around the corner for Peter and myself lived in this apartment complex, and it had a pool. Wow, had a pool. That was it. Had a swimming pool. We made it. First of all, coming from Chicago and then getting out to LA, you didn't see rain for 6 months, and wow, this is paradise. Anyways, so that was kind of the initial beginnings of, by the way, we had changed our name to Chicago Transit Authority from the big thing. So
good move.
And that was an improvement for sure, because the big things, that's a terrible name. I hate it.
Right.
Everybody hated it. The big thing.
I want to say this before I let Bill jump in. When you were talking about kind of that moment for yourself where you were like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
The options are not looking good. It just sounds to me like divine intervention.
Oh, no doubt. It felt like it too.
And I love that. And I just feel like, God steps in when you're doing what you're meant to do, and when you're really putting the energy into it, which you were.
Yeah.
And we're
you're right about
followed
that.
those impulses.
Me too.
Yeah, and there's so many elements, Danny, and what you've talked about so far about, that old expression, everything happens for a reason. And when you just think about all the likelihood of all of those things kind of happening and then all coming together like that is really amazing, and really is, I think, the kind of the definition of everything happens for a reason. And you talked about that brotherhood and what you went through, for those couple of months in such tight quarters. And it reminds me of, you used that same phrase in that speech that I referenced in the introduction at the Hall of Fame speech, the induction speech. You talked about the brotherhood, and you talked about so many different things. And I'm going to say it again, in what I believe is the most heartfelt, compelling, and real speech I've heard. And when you talk about having the chance to play with your brothers for the first time in such a long time, are there even words to describe what that night meant for you?
Heaven and hell. Heaven and hell.
Wow.
Heaven was, it was great to be back amongst the band. Hell was the way they treated me. I mean, they were nice, but it was just, I could see it was for the cameras. Yeah, and they knew. I mean, I think there was a few of them, if they could have left me off, they would have. And that's the honest truth.
That's terrible.
So, yeah, but that's the reality. And, they've got, of course, my speech, they never forgave me for my speech because I dropped 10 F-bombs, So
yeah, but a lot of other people have done that in that same venue, Danny, but they weren't, they were just doing it to drop F-bombs. In my opinion, your speech came from the heart.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just, when I really studied what was going on, I kind of hoped there would be maybe a reunion would come out of it. First of all, I really wanted Peter to come, and struggled with him and trying to convince him to come, but he just couldn't. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. Anyways, and so I was disappointed about that, but I was not going to let that get in the way of, an incredible evening, which it was an incredible evening. Don't get me wrong. And when I went up to do my speech, I was kind of out of body, to be honest. I was kind of like out of my body, looking at myself. And then I just went off. I mean, hi, I'm Danny Seraphine. I've been gone for the last 25 years, maybe you have noticed. And it was just, and then I went on to thank a lot of people that needed to be thanked, that didn't get thanked. And then just talk about the brotherhood of the band and how strong the band was in those days. And a couple of the incidents that really proved the grit of the band. It just, the band, and then at the end of the show, they were really, really upset with my speech. the picture of the band, was supposed to be a band picture with, that they kind of gone ahead and did it and held me out of it. So yeah, life, I've pretty much given up. I'm tight with Peter. Peter and I are really tight, and I'm tight with Bill Champlin and Jason. But as far as the band reconciliation with the band, it seems like they want to hold on to whatever reason they use excuse to fire me, and and they keep, and every so often, like Lee a couple of weeks ago said, if Danny had learned how to play with a click, he'd still be in the band. That's a bunch of BS. That's just, and but I'm grateful. I don't want you to think that. I'm very grateful. I've had a great life, and I'm playing with the band that I love playing with. We get along. We're great friends, and the band is a force to be reckoned with. I don't think anybody plays Chicago music as good as we do. In fact, I know there isn't. And we play it live. We don't play with tracks. We play it, because so many bands now play with tracks. I don't know if you know that.
Well, so now you're talking about California Transit Authority.
Yeah, we have a great band. Jeff Coffey singing lead. I have two great lead singers, Jeff Coffey and Tony Grant. Tony's the lead singer with the Temptations now when he can't do it. So, and they alternate.
Danny, there was a time in between Chicago and in between starting California Transit Authority where you took a lot of time to do other things and to be with your family. What was that experience like for you?
Basically in 1990, it kind of led up to that. All the wheels of it fell off in my life. All the wheels fell off the car. And, it was a really tough time. And I had to come to grips with quite a few things about myself and the situation, trying to understand why it happened, what I did, what I might have done to bring it on to myself. And, I don't feel like I'm a victim. I don't think it was handled very well then, nor it was right, but I don't think I'm a victim. I had a lot to do with it in the way I dealt with people and the way I just tried to make sense of it. But it also allowed me, living in Colorado in the mountains, it allowed me to slow down and think and live. And, I lived, in Colorado, I lived a really pretty nice life. I was better than most people that get fired. Finally, after the lawsuit was settled and all that, I had a really good amount of money, which, I spent a lot of it just living. But I lived, in the mountains. I learned to fly fish, ski, golf, and I was able to raise spend a lot of time with my children. My children came to visit. Well, my JD and Taryn, my son and daughter, and my stepdaughter Ashley lived with my ex-wife in Colorado. She's stayed in Colorado for a period of time, so I was really able to participate in their growing up. So that part was good. I mean, and I think, I don't think I would like to be in the band right now. It's not that I don't respect them, and I'll always respect them. They have a great place in my heart for all the great memories I have with them, and the great music we made together. It has totally stood the test of time, and that's something that I'm most proud of. More proud of than Hall of Fame. More proud of than any of the accolades. Any of the things. The fact is how good the music sounds. So today,
what did it take for you to get back to that incredible level of musicianship that you had grown accustomed to after such a layoff?
Well, it took a lot of work, a lot of woodshedding, and I got to play. Again, I was playing with Peter Fish, the late Peter Fish. You could Google him. Was a wonderful keyboardist, arranger, and a close dear friend who really coaxed me out of the cave, so to speak. But anyways, I was surrounded by really great people that were supportive of me because they knew, that I had some demons I had to conquer in my head, and I did not want to be that athlete that should have stayed in retirement. And so I went and studied with Jeff Porcaro, the late Jeff Porcaro's father, Joe Picaro. The late, he's passed on too, and he gave me confidence that I hadn't lost a thing, and that I was I should go ahead and do this and not look back, And so basically, that's what I've done. And the way I approach it, but it took a lot of woodshedding, practicing, which I do anyways to a certain degree. But there's woodshedding periods where you're really focusing on certain things and improving certain things as a musician, as a player. And that was certainly a time when, and it was playing with such great musicians again. The original Chicago was one of the greatest bands of all time, in my opinion. Not so much because of me, but you put Peter Cetera on vocals and singing, Terry Kath, one of the greatest guitar players, Jimmy Pankow, like a rebel, he invented a style of horn writing, and Robert Lamb, amazing singer and songwriter, and the Walt and Lee were just amazing musicians. So again, I was playing with a world-class band, playing the music the way it's supposed to be played. Mm-hmm. And that's really the mission statement of the band I'm in now. People want to hear Chicago, and we play it, we change some stuff here and there, but we don't change it so you don't recognize it. So, and people love it. So
definitely. Well, it's interesting that you said, you had to kind of really hunker down and focus to get back where you want it to be, because I know on your website you have a video that talks about the importance of physical and mental health in being a drummer, that drummers are athletes. And how much did getting into, getting your mind and your body back in shape, or, maybe you stayed in shape, but how important was that at that time?
It was paramount, and it's very challenging. It's still challenging, but the challenge of getting in shape and staying in shape, obviously both here and your body, to play the instrument the way it has to be played is, and I'm 74 now. I'm going to be 75 in August. So, I'm a 74-year-old athlete basically, and so, I have to take care of this body, and I had a heart attack in April. Believe it or not.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a drag, scary, but again, learning experience, and I have to take better care of myself, eat better more than anything, because sorry about that, I'm moving this. I shouldn't be moving that. So, anyways, that was getting in shape, but I had to get in shape with my hands and my feet, because I played equally with both, and so it was a combination, of working out. I did a lot because I was in Colorado at the time. I was doing mountain biking and during the day, and a really physical outdoor kind of life. There we go again. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna fuss at you.
Sorry. I'm gonna tie my hands behind my back. Sorry.
That's okay. You're a drummer. You got to keep moving.
You're getting a glimpse of it.
Now, Danny, just one last question that I had for you is, what do you do for fun outside of playing with the new version of CTA? And again, I appreciate everything you said. And we've seen a lot of you guys playing, and as Rosie said, we had Jeff on before, so we know you're putting out some great music to this day. But when you're not playing, what do you do to keep yourself busy and have some fun?
Mostly I really I golf a lot. I live 5 minutes from my country club, and even when I'm traveling, I drive to LA a lot. I got an electric Mercedes. I love it. Ooh. And I love my electric car. There's I feel good. I don't know. It's just nice to plug your car in. It's kind of a cool thing, at night. So, but I play golf. I go visit my family, in LA. My grandkids. I've got 8 grandkids. Oh. I have musicians friends, and but basically, I'm really focused on getting the band booked, and we're getting some really good gigs. We're going to play in Tel Aviv in August, and we've got we could be working more. I mean, the one challenge I face is there's so many Chicago tribute bands there's so many Chicago tribute bands that, you know, a lot of times guys, promoters and buyers, well, why do I have to pay these guys this much when I can get this band? And, you know, so that kind of makes my job a little more challenging, getting the band booked as much as it should. So,
Well, I can
anyways,
answer that question because we want the real deal. How about that?
yeah,
Yeah.
I like the way you're coming from. Yeah,
That's right. Danny, I have a question for you. If
yeah.
if you could sum things up in a couple of sentences, what would you want your legacy to be?
I would, you know, I think they would put it on my tombstone that he was one of the best at fusing jazz and rock drumming. You know, that he made it seem seamless. He every time he stepped on stage, he gave it everything he had in him. More importantly, he treated people with dignity and respect. And yeah, he made his mistakes, and yeah, he has a few regrets, but for the most part, you know, he's been able to live the life that he wants to live, and he treats people like he wants to be, like he would want to be treated. That's the way he treats people.
And is that something that you've imparted to your children and grandchildren?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I try to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Especially the work ethic is really important, because you know we worked incredibly hard to get where we are, or are, you know. I still, you know, and that's so important in life. And you see, you've got to work. You've got to try to do something that you really enjoy or love doing, if you can, and have a passion for it. But you know, in getting there, it's not like a straight line. You know, it's a jagged road, and you have to keep pushing through the down times to, you know, to get to the up times. So
Amen.
still today, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Danny, my gosh, this has been amazing. We could talk to you for hours. We thank you so much for coming
I
on.
can talk to you guys for hours too.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's really enjoyable.
Thank you
Both of you.
so
Yeah.
much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us and talk to us and share your story. We really
Well,
appreciate
hopefully we're going to be playing in your city, you know, and then you can come. I could meet you both face to face.
that. Would be awesome.
We will be there.
Yeah, we'll be on the lookout, and we'll be in touch.
All right. God bless
something
you.
around here. God bless you. And folks, thank you. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We sure have. And we'll see you next week.